Hey there, welcome to episode 129 of the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. I'm recording this the night before we publish. It's Thursday, August 14th at about 9:15 p.m. Thursday, August 14th, 2025. To be published on Friday as usual. Fridays is a great day for Cafe Genius Impresarios, wherever you find your audio programs. Today's title and topic, Reality Check. If you're new to the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program, let me tell you, it is a Cafe Genius effort. Cafe Genius is named for two things. Cafe Centro, and it was spelled with two F's back then as it is today. Cafe Centro was a small coffee shop in South Park in San Francisco, very near the AT&T ballpark, now the Oracle ballpark. It is where startups started, or as they would say, where startups start. Unfortunately, they are no longer in business. They didn't last too long after the pandemic. It is where Twitter kind of got started and a variety of others. It was a cool coffee shop. It was in a park. It was a nice place to hang out and have a coffee, have a chat, talk about how you're going to screw up the entire world with a microblog based on text messaging back then. Anyway, the Cafe Centro, and then the Genius Lunch, which was a gathering of people participating in one way or another in the downtown project days here in the greater Vegas, or downtown Vegas area, I should say. These were ad hoc gatherings to talk about what was going on, who was working on what was up, what was down, gossip. They were an effective way to get a quick kind of notion of what the terrain was looking like, and then get back to whatever it is you were spending your days and nights on. The Genius Lunch will someday make a return. I've done an entire episode about that, and it's harder than it looks. And finally, impresarios are people that make things happen. One of these days we'll return to interviewing people, although the audio version of this program may stick to essays about impresarios, so I'd like to start talking more about specific companies and whatnot. And then we might do some video-based interviews and publish those. And I will mention in the link section, if you aren't already aware, that you can find our programs in more places now. So that's the Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program rundown. The Cafe Genius is aimed at the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem of the greater Vegas area and beyond, looking at how it works, what doesn't, what we can do about it, learning more about it from the bottom up. We are entrepreneurs and innovators. Maybe you are too. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes. The show notes contain a brief summary, one sentence, that I'll read to you, and a few links for today's episode. We'll get into that in a second. So let's get started so we can finish. It's Thursday night after all. And for you, it's probably Friday night, or maybe it's next year by now. Who knows? Who knows when you're listening to this? The summary is as follows. The future of Greater Vegas is fun economy, Hollywood 2.0, BioTech Research, and of course, the next Silicon Valley. Has anyone asked the people living here what they think? The short answer is not really, but we'll get to that in a second. So the links for today's episode, and by the way, those are not the only key industries, but those are the ones that get the hype. We'll touch on that too. Buy Dan a coffee if you want, or if you don't want to spend any money, which you are not obligated to do, you can simply visit buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo and look at the profile page you will find there. It has links to all of my audio programs, including this one. And you can note that all of my audio programs are now available also on YouTube in the podcast section, although they also automatically generate videos. There's no video, it's just the cover art. But you can listen not only on YouTube, we are on Apple iTunes, or now Apple Podcasts, I guess, Amazon Music and Podcasts, whatever that is, and more. Ideally, we'll continue to grow our availability on the internets, wherever you find, and you can always download with an RSS feed. If you visit the Spotify profile page for each, it's on the creator link. I think it says I'm not looking at it right now, via Spotify for creators. That is a profile page. It has links to the Apple, Amazon, Spotify, of course, and then there's an RSS feed that you can just subscribe to directly using whatever podcast catcher tools you might be using. But yeah, I will always be endeavoring to increase the reach so I can talk to more people. So do check that out. And then don't forget that there's a Buy Me an Update audio program published every Monday. It's 5 minutes or less. It's a brief rundown on the previous week's audio programming topics and any news and announcements upcoming, always 5 minutes or less. So check that out. buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts was where it was originally and exclusively published. It can still be found there, but also everywhere else that I just mentioned. There's a YouTube podcast tab for it linked, and there's a Spotify profile page. You can now get it with RSS feeds and whatnot, or you can listen on buymeacoffee.com/danhugo/posts if you so desire. It's published there first and then very soon after everywhere else. Not less than a 1 day delay. Got to give a tiny bit of something to buy me a coffee, right? And Coffee Solo, KOFI, that's ko-fi.com/danhugo/posts. You will find the Coffee Solo audio program here again. Used to be published exclusively on the Ko-fi.com platform. It is still published there. It has no schedule. It has no limitation on topics or length or anything. It's just whatever comes to mind, whatever's going on, whatever's topical. I have published more than one episode in a single day. And you can find that not only on Ko-fi.com, but you can also find it in the same exact places. So if you visit the buymeacoffee.com/danhugo profile page, you'll find links to all of these and more projects, affiliate links for coffee beans and other things I actually and really use, and so on. So you can support my efforts if you're interested merely by listening or doing those other things, but don't feel obligated to spend any money that you wouldn't otherwise be spending. But if you do want to buy one of my favorite coffees for yourself, hey, I get a little something for that if you like. The rest of the links are related to both of those at the same time. This audio program episode, What Nevadans Want to Do. It's a Reno Gazette. Is that what it is? RJG? Reno Gazette, right? I do look at the Reno Gazette. Yeah, Reno Gazette Journal. Sorry, my apologies. Reno Gazette Journal. I read articles on there, but I can't say that I read it daily or anything. So, but they do have a story from yesterday, the 13th. Today is the 14th. This will be published on the 15th, 2025. Survey shows mismatch between jobs Nevadans, not Las Vegans and not Renoans. I don't know what that is, want, but it's across Nevada. The jobs that they want and jobs Nevada has. And this is it's an important thing in general. So we're going to touch on that. They're referring to a survey that was taken in 2024 between August and November of 2024, inclusively, I believe. So not like actually September to October. So it was about 4 months. They had 310 respondents. We'll get to that in a second. It was published by the CBER, which is, if I don't remember, it is the Center for Business and Economic Research at UNLV. I don't know if they have. I don't know if they have a sister organization at UNR. They probably should, but I honestly don't know. So that was a survey of unemployed persons. 310 people responded about what they want to do. And it turns out what they have in mind is not necessarily what the LVGEA and other people hyping the near-term future. I mentioned some of them. The fun economy, we have that. The Hollywood 2.0 doesn't look good. Not in the way they were hoping with tax and other incentives. The BioTech Research industry, I think that will take a while, but could happen. And of course, the next Silicon Valley, I don't see that happening anytime soon, not in less than 10 years, if. But then there are some others that we'll touch on if you, well, I'll get to that link in a moment. So you can flip through that actual survey. It is a PDF. And you can find a link to that and other things, including a crosstab tool. I think they're using Power BI for the actual survey data, so the 310 responses. There are some charts in the report, but you can find all that and more in the crosstab, and those are linked on the, there's a homepage for CBER forecasts and research in the URL there. So cber.unlv.edu, the link there in the links section of this audio program. The LVGEA, the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, publishes on one of their pages on their website a list of key industries with a little blurb on each one. We'll touch on that later, but it's lvgea.org. That's a public-private partnership. They sort of try to figure out what the economy in Vegas is doing and then try to correct it when they're wrong. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that for the moment. Formula One, this is a side note. Formula One small business lawsuit has been, I've written settled here, but I'm gonna change that to resolved, because settled has a legal implementation, a legal, what was I gonna, it has a legal meaning. They were not, I think two were settled and one is going to continue. So I don't know what the current state of them. Anyway, I believe these were, it's not very clear in the article, and I think this is sort of troubling. I believe these were lawsuits filed from the first Formula One race. So that was in 2023, November. So the lawsuits were filed last year. They were probably filed in like December, January, February sometime of 2024. Then there was another race in November of 2024. And that one, I believe, led to either some lawsuits or sort of a little uprising from small businesses because there were yet more problems that impacted those small businesses. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens for November of 2025. But the point I will be getting at with this reference is how the wins, not for the Formula One racers per se, but the economic gains, the good press and all that happened in November of 2023. This three businesses, and there are other businesses that were impacted. So this article is a little bit focused and a little bit vague on those dates, but, and then whatever they're allowed to actually report. But this happens much later. So people win at the time, and then they might recover from losses a year and a half, almost 2 years later. So maybe from the time they filed is a year and a half. But I mean, this is some serious time has passed, and we're not talking $20. I think one of them was $3.2 million in losses. So it's not trivial. It's not a small amount of money. I don't know if these are small businesses or maybe medium-sized businesses, but they're local businesses that were impacted by this big giant event. I will attribute that to a failure on the part of the people organizing the event, the Clark County Commission, the LVCVA, the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, and the Formula One people. Now, I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just saying that when they do these events, when they're planning something like this, outreach and engagement with small business and local communities is absolutely essential. By way of example, I'll say when I was living in Sunnyvale, California, and when the 49ers wanted to put a new stadium in Santa Clara, which they ultimately did, they did a fairly intense community outreach program where they invited people from the Santa Clara, like immediately around, and then people that might be impacted by transit into the area. So I lived near the Caltrain. There were people that lived near the light rail and how that would impact them, how buses. So how would traffic flow change? They were actually quite engaged. Now, I have to be honest, those engagements did not really seem to be material later, but at least they pretended. But I will simply say that more people should be heard earlier rather than having things happen to them. And in the context of this future, economic diversity planning and the efforts that are going into it versus what people who are here now want to do. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to just say, oh, we got to do what everybody on the ground wants to do. But I am saying that there needs to be some more communication and understanding about this so that we don't say, okay, we got all these industries. Oh, nobody wants to do this. We don't have our educational components in place. And if I may interrupt myself one last time before we get to the actual episode, I talked about this quite a bit in an episode about, well, actually more than one probably, about Phoenix, Tempe, Central Arizona. They wanted to add, they already had electronics assembly, government contracting, especially defense contracting, and semiconductor manufacturing. Let us not forget that TSMC is building a fab, or however far along they are with that. Intel had a fab, Motorola, other companies were actually manufacturing silicon there. If there's going to be an next Silicon Valley, we kind of already have one south of Vegas. They wanted to introduce biotech, specifically genetics, Genentech and TGen, was that what it was? I already talked about this. I didn't prepare for this today, but they were going to be building some actual research facilities. So before they broke ground and as they were beginning to build the infrastructure for this, they went ahead and introduced some new curriculum in the Maricopa County Community College infrastructure to enable lab technicians and other workers to take jobs in this new industry that was joining the menu in the Central Arizona area, in addition to making sure that the curricula in the universities. Northern Arizona University already had some biotech. U of A, of course, has a medical school, and ASU had its biotechnologies. They wanted to make sure there were sufficient genetic research items on their course offerings so that people could begin to train for careers that are aligned more with what these two companies were doing. Imagine that, realigning your education infrastructure to go with these new industries. So yeah, something to think about. Finally, and again, the previous episode or two, one of these days I'll come up with when I publish the websites, I will have like a directory that gives you a quick rundown on what the episode is about, more than just the summary. So people might be able to peruse the catalog. What are we on, episode 129? That's a lot of me talking about a lot of stuff. So there might be something interesting in there, other than today's episode, of course. Finally, a Wikipedia page on confidence interval. In case you're wondering what confidence interval means, since we're going to talk very briefly about the study from the CBER on what Nevada's unemployed want to do next. Alrighty, so let's get on with the show. Let's get started so we get finished. I will begin by saying that interesting times are here. There's a false toast or sentiment. Some call it a curse. I say false because it is incorrectly attributed to a Chinese curse wherein you wish someone, an enemy perhaps, may you live in interesting times. The suggestion being that these interesting times will be chaotic and unpleasant, generally not good. It's like bless your heart, I suppose. Whatever the origin, it's not a Chinese curse. There was that movie with Donald Sutherland and Demi Moore and Michael Douglas, and I'm totally spacing on the name, but that's where Donald Sutherland makes that toast. May you live in interesting times. He says it's a toast, more of a curse. So whatever the origin, I believe it is fair to say that we are all today living in interesting times, if you take that meaning. That said, the study I am referring to when I mentioned it was from a window of time in 2024. It surveyed 310 people, so 310 completed submissions of the online survey. To be honest, I don't know. I didn't see it in there. I'll reread. I didn't read the survey study results, the report, one of those words, in great detail. I read over it just to get a few senses, since I just found this last night. But I will say, it's not totally clear how these people found this. Did they proactively reach out to people? Did they advertise that they're taking a survey? That's usually what I see now and then, but where they advertise might be something to consider. I think we have very limited avenues to reach people. Anyway, back onto the notes here. So 310 completed submissions, self-identifying as unemployed, and the nature of their, how they became unemployed and so on. So that was all self-supplied information, which is fine. With a total of 32 questions on the survey, and those survey questions are available in the report at the end, to capture various pieces of data from each respondent. There was some demographic information. There's, what did you do? I guess they didn't say what did you do before specifically. I think they said how did you separate voluntarily or layoffs, etc. Because it does say in there that what people want to do next isn't directly connected to what they were doing. So that seems like a glaring omission, but that's just me. What do I know? This was a survey across the state of Nevada. So your mileage may vary depending on where you are. I will say that rurally located people in the middle of the state made transportation an issue with finding new work. That makes absolute sense, of course. It's interesting. It's interesting that what is it called? The Bright Line. They're building a train to go from, I think it's downtown Las Vegas, somewhere around downtown Las Vegas to somewhere east of LA. I cannot remember where exactly. Was it Rancho? I think it's Rancho Cucamonga. But you still can't get around if you're north of Tonopah, I guess. It's good luck. Got to have a car. We are not going to dive into the survey too much itself, not too much, other than the desires by respondents, those 310 people, to pursue career change into a job or job types that are not necessarily the industries Nevada is attempting to bring into the state. I will focus on Southern Nevada here, since that is where Cafe Genius has its microscope set up. And I really, to be honest, I don't know exactly what EDAWN is doing up in the Washoe County area, so that might be another topic for another time. The macro question: why is this survey so small in scope and scale? Why? A quick diversion into some statistics. Now, I will say I'm not a statistician, but if you do anything with science data, if you've ever been in a chem lab, or especially a physics lab, or you know about error bars, confidence intervals, how much data you should be taking. If you do any engineering, you know about sample rates, Nyquist frequencies, and so on. So I'm still not a statistician. There is a saying, we have all heard it, that there are lies, damned lies, and statistics. I have also shared a description a friend of mine, when we were in high school, of all places, would use in his expository speaking competition presentations. That statistics are like a bikini. What they reveal is interesting. What they conceal is vital. And if that one offends you, lean into that first expression about the lies. And remember, it was in high school. What are you going to do? It was a long time ago. A very long time ago. As indicated in the report and in their interactive crosstab tool, which is again available from that report homepage link. The actual link is really long and ugly. Like, it's got a huge parameter in the URL to identify the Power BI crosstab data. So it's just ugly to paste into something. So visit their homepage. In fact, you should bookmark that report homepage. There's probably more stuff coming of interest. Production by a street. So as indicated in the interactive crosstab tool and in the report, the error on the data is 6%, with a confidence interval of 95%, which is fairly typical for stats. You want to get 95% or better. And you can find that information about the confidence interval and what that really means with Wikipedia in the article that I linked to. Essentially, there's a 95% chance that the average is correct, or that they're in a window that's 95% likelihood of hitting the target, right? I'll leave it there. So read that article if you want to learn more, and continue reading if you really want to learn about confidence intervals and statistics. And by the way, I have to insert a quote from a paraphrase. There are various versions of this quote from Penn Jillette, but famously, Las Vegas is a place built on the inability of people to do math. People who really understand statistics probably would not waste their money on gambling. Something to think about. So for what it is, the survey is probably reasonable. 95% confidence interval is pretty good. 99% is kind of a gold standard, but 95% is fine. 6% error, it's pretty reasonable. 3% maybe if they could have gotten 600 people to respond, maybe, who knows? Who can say? It is important to note that the survey was conducted among Nevadans 18 and older between August and November of 2024. The 18 part is not critical, although it might be interesting to know what, honestly, I don't know what the age is when you can actually work with the limited hours and so on. I started working when I was in Phoenix, when I was about 15 and a half. I should have been 16, but don't tell anyone. So I don't know if they could include 16-year-olds in what they want to do. I don't know if that would be totally relevant, but it might be interesting to open it up to everyone who is able to work. And I would be interested to know about people who want to change jobs, but that's just me. So 18 and older between August and November of 2024. I don't know if anything in particular was going on between August and November of 2024, but I do know that things have changed slightly between November of 2024 and today. To say that the world has changed since November 2024 would almost certainly be considered true across the board, no matter your political leanings. Things are different. The top industries the respondents seem to want to pursue are transportation, hospitality, and administration, which is interesting. I don't know if they got really more specific than that, and those are just the top three. But those are not necessarily the key industries that are, and that was the nature of that article I linked to. And it's generally like, oh, this is where we're trying to push people as far as moving businesses or establishing them here in the certainly the southern Nevada area. And then there's the stuff that people actually want to pursue. And this is a very small group, and it's in a very limited time frame. I believe many of the people were unemployed for as long as 2 years, so they're probably pretty flexible. I guess I would be. But on the other hand, you can't just pick up a new skill overnight. So you can't just take any job if people are going to say, well, you're going to have to know manufacturing and battery technology. That's a different thing, which I don't know. I don't know how the job recs are for that industry as it is moving into, I think Henderson has a battery manufacturing plant with, it's lithium ion something, Lion something maybe, I don't know. I can't remember the name. As I'm recording this episode today, though, and remember it's August 14th, 2025. The time is now 9:45 almost. Time check. The number of unemployed people in greater Las Vegas area, or is it the city of Las Vegas? That's not totally clear. It does matter if you're going to say number of people employed in Las Vegas, but if you mean the Las Vegas region, you're including employees of the Strip, the gaming industry, the fun economy on the whole. If you're looking at city-based statistics, then you're looking at city of Las Vegas, and the Strip is not in the city of Las Vegas. So being clear about that would be nice, but Vegas likes to be vague about that. The unemployment numbers appear to have grown in the wrong direction based on an update published yesterday, so on the 13th of August, on the CBER report homepage. So there's a little gray box. I'm not linking to it now because it's probably going to go away. It's just it's like a news item. I think it's like 2 paragraphs. So you can, if you visit it sooner, but then again, that homepage might be interesting to link to if you are curious about the economics of the greater Vegas area. So they have a little blurb there. And again, I'm not going to link to it because it's probably going to change. It's probably going to like roll down the bottom and go somewhere else. Or there might be more current data, so you should look for that. But I do find it interesting that the quick blurb is using real numbers. So since I'm actually referring to it, let me pull this up. So it's called Las Vegas Unemployment Rises Amid Economic Changes, August 13, 2025. Oh, it's 4 paragraphs. Sorry, 2 or 1 sentence. The first paragraph, the number of unemployed individuals in the Las Vegas MSA. So I'm assuming that's not just the city. What is Las Vegas MSA? What does that mean? I should have looked this up earlier. I didn't even notice that. Oh, Metropolitan Statistical Area. Oh, okay. Las Vegas, Henderson, Paradise. The Las Vegas Valley, which includes Clark County and the 3 largest incorporated cities. But if you're going to include Clark County, that's already bigger than it includes the 3 largest incorporated cities. So that's silly, but okay. So the question answered. So basically Clark County, the number of unemployed individuals, 72,768. Sorry, 72,698. An increase of 4,474 since May of 2025. So that's between May and August. 691 fewer than in June of 2024. And then there's some more detail here. And the labor force in Vegas has also seen some changes, increasing to 1 million, something, this and that. So they're throwing around real numbers here. But how is unemployment typically reported? As percentages of the total people that are able to be working. Or is it people that are looking for work? I can't remember exactly. It's one of those details that will be lost to the ages now with various changes. But the bottom line is this. They are reporting on unemployment having gotten worse. There are fewer people working than want to in the greater Vegas area, in the Vegas MSA. The metropolitan, it's a new word I learned today. Thank you. But they're using their numbers. But when you compare it like on a national level, nationally, Las Vegas, and I'm going to guess here they may be using the same region, the MSA, or maybe it's just the city. Maybe people automatically assume it's the Strip. Who can say? But I think our unemployment is over 5% again, which is second to Stockton, California. And since we're here and since I'm already distracting with my internet activities, Las Vegas unemployment percentage, August 2025. 5.4%. Oh, 5. Okay, reported in August. It's July is 5.4%. Oh, interesting. So the Vegas MSA had a 5.8 unemployment rate in June. this is really a mess. They're giving. So this is kind of the statistical thing where they're revealing things, but the concealed parts, like where exactly are you talking about? Those are important details. The unemployment rate in June, while the city of Las Vegas itself was at 6%. So that is a critical piece of information, is that people, there's a worse unemployment rate, a higher unemployment rate of unemployment in the city of Las Vegas than in the greater Vegas or the Vegas MSA or the Clark County region. It's not off by much, but I mean, if you're in the 0.2%, that's you. So there's a mixed employment picture. Some of the sources of this data I would call into question, but the bottom line is this: Vegas has a high unemployment rate wherever you are specifically. So yeah, we could use some direction. Check, please. Reality check. So the take home from the study, and something I think should be on everyone's minds in general, is the connection between decisions and direction from the top, your local government in your city, your county commission, the agencies that are offering direction, the commercial interests. So the Formula One race is the example I usually go to because it's such a head shaker. Eventually we will have the Oakland Athletics and the stadium debacle, because I'm sure that will go somewhere in the wrong direction. The stadium is currently rising. It's up over $2 billion to build. And it's still not completely clear that the Oakland A's, now playing ball in Sacramento during stadium construction, if they ever will actually move here. But if you're a Tropicana fan, sorry, that place is gone. Demolition City. So it should be on everybody's mind in general, the connection between decisions and direction from the top and what people really want to do or what they can do down here with the rest of us. So people that are driving these ideas, and again, I'm gonna repeat myself here. I refer to the Formula One lawsuit situation and partial resolution so far in the news link as a reminder that big things like race circuit construction and stadium construction and traffic rerouting and decisions that will impact housing and cost of living, like gentrification from importing talent, which we'll touch on in a moment, not to mention the ability to get around for work and a variety of other facets of life in general, can sometimes lead to real losses, material losses, and real impact on quality of life and even the ability to stay and try to work in the greater Vegas area for the normies like me and you, while the big names that make headlines take some profit. I don't know if you remember when Formula One that first year was done, there was much rejoicing that the Fontainebleau did great and the Bellagio did great. Anybody that seemed to be making money, and then later as the news trickled out, well, they didn't do quite as well, and there were some resorts that kind of lost some money, and they had to kind of cut the ticket prices. So I think there's a rush to announce successes, and there's a very slow walk for some of the bad news, and that's fine as long as we know that, right? No, that's not fine. Don't agree with me. So where am I? Formula One partial resolution, circuit reconstruction, stadium, impact housing, to get around work and the facets of life. Some of these lead to losses. Yeah. Okay, I finished that. It's almost 10 p.m. already. I shouldn't even be close to tired. For the workforce of today, we have a couple of things to ponder. On the one hand, as I say repeatedly and only partially in jest, the fun economy, which by the way was recently trademarked, that's a term now trademarked, fun economy, 2 words, trademarked by the UNLV Office of Economic Development. Congratulations to Bo Bernard, he's very excited, is important and valuable. I'm not going to take anything away from that. They've done 100 years or so of establishing Las Vegas as a destination city for entertainment. It used to be more adult entertainment. Now they've leaned into family-friendly and adult entertainment, and certainly performative entertainment, music and other performances and so on, production by street. So yeah, good on Vegas for maintaining the fun economy wherever it can. And they've done some interesting construction. Area 15 is a non-casino destination for some interesting experiences, immersive experiences. There's the boulevard. There's new shopping. There's no shortage of restaurants. The fun economy is a thing. So I make fun of the fact that they trademarked it because I think they should be pointing their efforts in other directions, but so be it. Trademark granted. So it's important and valuable. insofar as people continue to want to visit the Vegas area for fun. Indications seem to be that in good times they do. Right now, not as much. I literally just saw some YouTubers talking about how is Vegas dead? And they claim that there's millions, plural, fewer people coming here. Apparently the run rate, well, it's not a run rate now if it's actually including the 6 months or 7 months between January and July. You have to throw out February because of the Super Bowl last year. But year over year for the corresponding time intervals, I think it's 1.2 million fewer people thus far. That's not millions, so you have to be fair. And the fun part is that if you look at the hotel occupancy and the airport arrivals, so those are low, those are down. But if you look at gaming revenue, there's downtown is more up than the Strip, which is also slightly up. I'm not looking at those numbers now, so I'm kind of going from memory. But the take home, more people who already live here, or maybe they drive over from LA or whatever, more people are hanging out in Vegas and gambling downtown maybe than a year ago. Because maybe it's not so crowded. Maybe not so many people flying in. Maybe there's a million fewer people getting in the way. So that's something to think about. The fun economy, it's important. Indications, it's good in good times. There's an effect. So where am I? A survey to do on an ongoing basis, which I don't know is being done, is the current economic situation in the greater Vegas area as it affects the workforce that enables the fun economy. This is a direct current connection and status that would be analyzed all the time. Why? Because the fun economy is all the time. To me, this should have been something, okay, you can trademark the fun economy, but why don't we put some sensors in place to measure the fun economy? How does the fun economy, well, we just look at Formula One. No, why don't you look at the people that are working? Are they able to get to work? What is the cost of housing? Are they struggling? Is your fun economy going to be unmanned, but are people going to be able to work to enable the fun economy, or are they going to be priced out? And you can refer to the Austin scenario for that. We've talked about this in a previous episode. And if this is not being analyzed frequently, and really it should be like data should be collected anytime, all the time, people should just be able to log in and say, yeah, I got laid off today, or my rent has gone up. And just so we have some sense of what the terrain is like for the service and hospitality industries and the people that enable the fun economy. I will be amazed and slightly disappointed if they are not doing that. But actually, I won't be disappointed. I'll be disappointed that they're not doing it. I won't be surprised or disappointed to find that out, if that makes sense. LVGEA, that's the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, has their key industries rundown. Let's pull that up real quick so I will just very briefly, because I've already talked about this in a previous episode. There it is. So target industries, these are the industries that are looking for growth. Advanced manufacturing and battery. I actually think manufacturing in general is interesting. Battery, they're really looking at the lithium ion deposits from the McDermott caldera up in the Washoe area, Washoe County. That's a county, but the caldera where they've got this huge lithium ion strike. The Reno, Washoe area, Washoe County, somewhere in there, is designated as a innovation site by the federal government to develop battery and energy storage technologies, probably powered, by this lithium ion resource that's become available. So making manufacturing of battery technologies in Vegas is not unreasonable, but I believe manufacturing in general, if it's coupled with the sustainability research that's already done, Vegas pretty much, or Southern Nevada pretty much leads the way in water recovery and conservation, due mostly to the fact that we live in a desert and our water rights from Lake Mead are so dismal. And Lake Mead could use a little bit more water than it has. And that will be important forever. So we can make sustainable manufacturing one of our target industries, but they have advanced manufacturing and battery. Clean tech. Okay, solar is already kind of has a presence here. They have windmills in the picture. I'm not totally sold on this, but maybe. Sports tech and entertainment, this already aligns with some of the things already happening here. So this is kind of a gimme, right? Entertainment, hospitality, the fun economy, sports tech aligns with the emerging professional sports presence and popularity here in the Vegas area. So that's kind of an easy one. Fintech, processing powerhouse in the financial services and financial technologies industry. I'm not totally sold on this. Fintech does not have to be developed in a physical location. So I'm not seeing this now. We'll find out. This is one to keep an eye on. I'm not really sure. Healthcare and biotech. This one could go either way. Healthcare is already 25% of our economy, I think it said somewhere that I read that. So healthcare is kind of that hidden service that's available and is a strong component of our economy. A lot of people might think, oh, isn't it 100% gaming or something? It's not. So real estate is actually also a large component of our economy, real estate transactions and whatnot, construction, all that. But healthcare, and it's important to note that because of the climate, and there is a large number of, there's a large veteran population here. They, of course, work with the VA. I believe there's a well-regarded VA hospital here in North Las Vegas. So healthcare in general is a thing here in Vegas. It has been for a few years. That's probably good. So the biotech side, there's a new medical school opening. I believe it just opened, just launched their inaugural class at UNLV. So some possibilities there. So none of these are the industries that unemployed people want to go into, maybe entertainment sort of. Now, that's fine. It's fine that they're different, but it's important to know that they're different. And I don't know if people pay attention to that. The CBER people might. And of course, they also mentioned that there's a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem. Let me just read this paragraph. And again, this is on the key industries page for the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance. Las Vegas is a fertile ground for startups and entrepreneurs, recently named the best city in America for pre-IPO startups. That was from 2023 from a crowdfunding organization. And to this day, I don't know how that's actually connected to reality, but they had the author of the study in for a breakfast meetup that I attended, and it just seemed like a lot of hand waving, but they still tout it this many years later. It's not really. And the important key, and I've mentioned this before, they did not include Silicon Valley and other such places in the list of possibilities. So the best city of all the second best cities, you could say, I say it glibly, but let's be honest. Our vibrant ecosystem supports dreams and visions. Oh, those are nice. Transforming them into Series A funded realities, that I would take issue with, and successful IPOs. Except we never talk about them. We never hear about them. The only one we hear about is TensorWave from our favorite son, Peter Tomasic, and his co-founders, which we should also take issue with. With resources, mentorship, and a collaborative community, none of those things I believe are really true, not strongly true. Southern Nevada nurtures the next generation of innovators, which I believe is entirely false. So that one is that one is fantastic. So they have their key industry rundown, and there is a general view one can find in the nature of LinkedIn posts and other headlines and discussions. I've literally heard people say, this place is going to blow up. It's going to be like, so they've said it out loud, but that Southern Nevada as a global innovation hub that rivals that of the San Francisco Bay Area is a real thing that people have really written and published. One that I've read almost, if not exactly those words, and variations on that theme, that, the next Silicon Valley, all of that. That leaves me wondering, if we look at the 95% confidence of the CBER survey, I have to wonder again, who wants to work in these key industries? And that's why you got to survey a lot more people, and they have to be employed or unemployed. They have to be looking for a career change, or I'm happy where I am, et cetera. So more rolling introspective surveys. You may have heard me mention that before. So how about some imports? One of the imports of talent, especially, one of the messages we have seen in print and said out loud regards the notion of businesses locating or relocating in the greater Vegas area. Those key industries the LVGEA lists do not have to emerge from our local entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. And in fact, if established companies in those verticals can establish a presence here in the area, there is more economic impact to tally because they're already established. They don't have to start from nothing. They have to maybe build a building, but they already have a brand, they already have a product perhaps or a service, they already have an offering, they have maybe already have employees. So now it's just a question of, can we establish a presence in the Southern Nevada region? Well, yeah, so there'd be actual revenue coming into the state, and there'd be jobs created in this region, which are wins, right? Those are both check marks in a good column. Created jobs could be created. Well, there might be jobs for workers brought in from the home office, maybe. So are they created or are they imported? Technically, you're creating a job when you establish a new business here, but it's not a job that would be available to just anyone if you're moving people from other places. So yes, you have somebody generating income. They're paying, they're not paying state income tax, but they're participating in the economy. So that's good. But you have imported someone. A part of that messaging I mentioned includes become a local. Those words are actually printed on some signage and probably elsewhere. In other words, move to the Vegas area, settle in, and work at your company, and your family can enjoy the life in Vegas. Not to say that they aren't going to do, they're not going to work or go to school, whatever, they're going to do their thing. This was before, they started this long before Mark Wahlberg relocated from Hollywood region, Southern California. But he has spoken of this model working out well for him and his family. His kids love it here. They go to not public schools, of course. They go to private schools. They live in a nice big house in the Summerlin region. But so his case is not going to be so common, but hey, good for him. It could work out for you. It might work out for you also. Who knows? By the way, Mark Wahlberg and Dean Cain are the total of two celebrities often touted as examples of Hollywood 2.0 potential. Hollywood 2.0, there could be movie production, studios want to move here, celebrities like Mark Wahlberg and Dean Cain, and it's always just those two. Interesting. Shouldn't there be like 100 by now? It's been a couple of years. It's been 4 years since Mark Wahlberg wanted to get the tax and other incentive bills passed through the state government. And it failed once, and now it's failed again. It hasn't been 4 years. I'm sorry. It's been over 2 years. It will be more than 2 years. I'm laughing with him. So these are the two celebrities often touted as examples. And those are the only two that anyone comes up with. And Dean Cain is going to be busy now working for ICE. So if you don't know who Dean Cain is, you're in the majority, so don't worry about it. But the fact is, we always have the one example. I mentioned TensorWave. TensorWave is the big win. TensorWave startups like TensorWave, Peter Tomasic is a multiple serial entrepreneur with Let's Rollo and influential. And okay, so if Silicon Valley was, we got Apple, and Apple's doing printers and handheld devices, and Apple again. Oh, look at Apple go. You'd be like, okay, but what else? Is there anything else going on? I'm asking that question. And if there is anything going on, where would we hear about it? The issues, though, with essentially advocating a talent import path, this powers two problems. In other words, it elevates two problems and maybe irritates them. First is a potential admission that our current workforce is not up to the task. And this aligns roughly with the output of the study, where those looking for work are not looking in those key industry areas that we're trying to attract. And it lacks workforce training, and lack of workforce training is in that survey. Check it out. And that's in the Clark County area, I believe. Transportation is one, lack of training, job skills. And that's why this survey needs to be expanded to find people who want to move into new industries, if any of these are interesting, or if they have the skills to do it, or how they would go about doing it. So again, the survey is necessary but insufficient, in my opinion. If you are going to establish a presence in Greater Vegas, any companies out there considering, bring some workers with you, if you don't mind. Let us remember, and I have spoken of this before, the Downtown Project attracted entrepreneurs, but not a workforce to enable them. I've talked about this before. I actually talked about it with Dylan. If you want to flip back and listen to that episode, it's way back in the early days. But his comment was, well, we should have been able to hire within the Downtown Project. But nobody invited workers to come to the Downtown Project. So that was a gap. So the Downtown Project explicitly attracted entrepreneurs, but not a workforce to enable them. And the connection to UNLV, for example, was essentially not established. It didn't exist. Same with CSN, the College of Southern Nevada, and other academic agencies, infrastructure. So the Downtown Project was essentially an insular implementation of a entrepreneurial ecosystem, right? Let's create a biodome and we'll try to establish our own little ecosystem and not interact with the outside world. That's a bad idea. And luckily it didn't last too long in that mode. They did realize, oh, maybe we can't do that. And that's a totally interesting area for a retrospective analysis to apply to our current ecosystem development and how it's developing. It's hard to develop an ecosystem. That's very expensive. I've talked about all these things before. There was a gap between startups starting up and the possibility that startups functioning in a successful mode, if they needed to hire, they'd kind of be back to square one. Like the way I always describe it is in the downtown project arena, if you were in a room full of people and said, hey, I have a startup, does anybody want to work for me? Everyone in the room would say, yeah, me too. We all have startups. So we don't have any potential employees in this room. Second, importing talent from other places, especially if those places are more expensive, cost of living and so on. If it's more expensive to live and work in those other places, like the other Silicon Valley, the one nobody's ever heard of up in the Bay Area, it leads to potential gentrification, which raises the cost. I wrote lost of living. That's probably a Freudian slip. Cost of living, where things like housing start to go up a little bit faster than the incomes of those in the fun economy. So then you start pricing people out. And this has happened before. People depart Silicon Valley and they buy up a few homes for cash wherever they're moving to. They treat it as an investment. They rent it out. So they're rent seekers. Oh, I don't have to work anymore. I can just live on the rent from others and I overcharge. All the property values start to go up. They're, oh, this is exciting. But then if things don't work out, big problems. You can look at the Phoenix area. Of course, this was all around the subprime mortgage timeframe, 2008-ish. Something to reflect on a little bit. But it was, it was between 2000, it was during 2005, 6, 7, 8. Interesting times that went south. But it's happened before. And things don't always go well. If you need to find a more concrete example of gentrifying a region through importing of tech industry, tech workers, you can check out Austin. And we've done an entire episode on Austin and how it went from a particular culture and an attractive life, a place that was interesting, a college town, UT Austin. The tech folks moved in and no longer were people able to live and work in Austin in some of the existing industries. So gentrification can be ugly and can have a really drastic effect on the fun economy if people can't even get to work to continue to work. And robots cannot do everything. So let's talk about entrepreneurs and innovators. You have heard me speak of our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem a few times if you've heard me speak of it once. And here you have. So there you go. How is our ecosystem doing? Well, it is difficult to say, but I will tell you the indicators I am looking at. How many accelerators and incubators are there? These are entities that will help a startup start up, right? They'll help with getting an MVP, a minimally viable product, which I'm not a fan of that approach, but it can work. They usually are focused on tech or tech adjacent pursuits. They really push on a timeline that's probably in the 5 to 7 year range to go public and offer a return on investment to those investors. There's some things about accelerators and incubators, but they should be here if this is a thriving entrepreneurial region. How many launches? How many startups are up and running? It's been, the pandemic was 5 years ago, so let's say it's been 3 or 4 years since let's say it's been 3 years. 3 years of really serious effort to develop this entrepreneurial ecosystem. There was a study done by Mo Collins in 2023. It was published in April. I did an interview with Mo. We talked about the report. It was 100 pages, 99 maybe, 101, something like that. It covered the entire state. It focused on Washoe and Clark counties and the rural areas separately, and then the state as a whole. So that was 2023. It was published in April. The study started in January of 2023. So the last 3 years, this has been an active focus. Of course, there were things happening in the entrepreneurial space before the downtown project, for example, which is why that is a information-rich cornucopia of data potential. If we do a retrospective and look into what worked and what didn't, because it's, guess what, on the same footprint as the current innovation ecosystem, entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, if you will. So how many accelerators and incubators? How much infrastructure is there to enable and encourage entrepreneurs to get into startup mode? Usually they're focused on tech, but you know what? There could be restaurant incubators. There could be other industry accelerators. There could be all kinds of stuff going on here if this really was a vibrant and exciting place. Instead, there's consolidation, which I have talked about before. How many launches, how much startup is happening? You know, we always hear about restaurants opening and closing in this area. We don't get much other news. And then how many failures? Wait, failures? Why do I want to know? I want more failures. What does that mean? It means people are taking a shot. It means people are taking chances. It means people are potentially investing in those chances being taken. That means this place is exciting and there's potential. If failures don't get any attention because there's not much in the way of failures, maybe there's not much in the way of launches. Maybe we really don't have a whole lot of incubation and acceleration going on. Maybe, is it really vibrant? I don't know. What we usually hear about is Tech Alley, Level Up, or whatever Startup Vegas is doing now, and maybe some news now and then from Startup NV and whatever they are engaged in. Maybe you'll hear about Generator. That news is sometimes hard to find. What else? I don't know. There might be some other stuff. Who knows? It doesn't make the news. There may be some smaller players, but where is the news? Where is the news coverage of these things? There really isn't any. Where is the energy behind updates and announcements? People should be talking about this stuff all the time. I did apply to participate in the Zero Labs Innovation Launchpad. After I had it turned out to be a 20-minute Zoom call with them. It was actually a Google Meet call. I didn't have any interest in pursuing. I don't know that there would be anything in there. And one of the red flags for me there, they really don't advertise what they're doing. They certainly don't advertise, and like, you can attend. They had an event at the end. It's a 3-day course, and they have some sort of a presentation thing at the end. I think it was at the Bellagio this year. They've done 5 cohorts in the last 2 or 3 years. Everyone should know about this. Everyone should know each and every startup that went through, even if they're in some sort of stealth mode, if they're going to get up on a stage this whole notion of being secretive, it doesn't bode well for our thriving ecosystem. So the take home, Zero Labs to me is of very little value unless someone attends it and actually finds value. But boy, they do not make that interesting or appealing. Maybe I should try to talk to somebody who's been through the program. I would very much like to get one person from each cohort. But the real take home, 3 years, 5 cohorts, and I think they do like 8. I could look. I'm not going to look. You can look. Try to find their website. Try to figure out how many participating startup notions were in each cohort. If this were a thriving startup entrepreneurial ecosystem, there should be a Zero Labs Innovation Launchpad every month. Instead, it's twice a year-ish. That's insanity. Oh, well, it's fine if you aren't trying to convince people that this is going to be the next Silicon Valley. Most of the innovation, not all, but an awful lot, that gets attention is actually from other places deployed in Vegas for exposure to the tourist crowds, which is totally fine. I totally support that notion. This is a great idea, and more should be made of it. In fact, that was the startup I pitched to the Zero Labs Innovation Launchpad. And this was, of course, the topic of the City as a Showcase episode of this very audio program that I did a couple months ago. I think I did it in May or June. Deployment in a viable market is a great thing. Totally fine. Totally fan. Go for it. We do not want to diminish that. But trying out a self-driving vehicle or a new coffee machine in Vegas, put it in the rooms, right? In Vegas does not mean either of those things is an innovation born in or of Vegas. We could consider getting real about recognizing the actual innovation and celebrating those people who are doing it, and we should, of all kinds of innovation, not just the latest app. Oh, there's no AI, we're not interested. No. We should be celebrating all forms of innovation and entrepreneurialism, and it should be making a lot more of the local media. I've talked about that at quite at length. That's one of my favorite episodes, episode 85. Vegas is the next ... Vegas. Maybe we can find this stuff here maybe someday, the innovation and so on. Is there an ecosystem here? Yes. Is it vibrant? Is it healthy? Is it about to pop? I don't know about that. I think any place can have an entrepreneurial ecosystem. That, of course, people always think entrepreneurs. You mean like a .com? Sorry, that's from the old days. You mean you're developing an app? No, I'm a TikTok creator. Guess what? You're also an entrepreneur. If you're paying if you are in business creating content for a platform and you're generating revenue, that's entrepreneurialism in action. Most probably, to some degree, any place can have an entrepreneurial ecosystem, most probably to some degree. Like it won't always be Silicon Valley, but it doesn't have to be a ghost town with, a tumbleweed and a general store, right? There's a lot of points in between. But to believe that any place can be any place could be the next Silicon Valley, quote unquote, it's already been tried. A lot of places have made that claim and it's not true. Or that any other claims we read about or hear about just because the statements are made is just pure fantasy. And I've made this statement many times. Don't believe the hype. You have definitely heard this one before. We need to cultivate our culture of innovation. This does not happen with an educational pathway leading to employees working in key industries or less. And I would have to dig for it, but I found a presentation from about 3 or 4 years ago about how Clark County School District is aiming for an employee training curriculum. They want to build a workforce of employees to take advantage of the opportunities in Southern Nevada. I believe things have changed. It starts with education of students with big ideas who may actually want to chase them. So let's teach young people how to be entrepreneurial and also be employees if they need to. We're not teaching, freshmen in high school how to be poker dealers, right? Are we? Wait, are we? I hope not. So this is the last section, so get ready. I have gone on at length regarding the 7th grade focus on early entrepreneurial interest to enable those young people to get off the employee track and into something more interesting. If job skills or workforce training is an issue, and I believe it is, according to the survey, but that survey is too small and too limited, 310 people. And yes, statistically, it's representative, but it's not, first of all, it's not rolling, so things have changed in the last several months. It's also, it might be indicative of something very simple. I think there's a lot more nuance here that we should be looking at. If job skills or workforce training is an issue, we can and should extend that into not only starting at 7th grade, but also into adult education to train or retrain our new workforce participants to enable the fun economy so in other words, they can enter the fun economy. Apparently there are job openings. We have a high unemployment rate. Hopefully there are jobs to be had as tourism returns. But anyway, so fun economy or pursue entrepreneurial endeavors or tackle some of the key industries or somewhere in between. In other words, if there are options, we should enable the people that are here already to make take advantage of those options, not leave them to their own devices. And from what I've seen of the Southern Nevada region, there is a tendency to get people to come here or to offer a sense of optimism and then wish them the best of luck. So there's that last mile that I believe is left to chance. And chance is fun in a casino, but not in a workforce. If people working to enable the fun economy, not the people at the top making dumb decisions, the people actually working, are at risk with a downturn in tourism, they should be enabled to fill in the gaps with side gigs or better. So I have some sub points here. Maybe that is rideshare. That's popular here, though those might be down with the reduced tourism, so you can't count on that. But there are any number of possibilities that one person might be interested in pursuing. They may have the skill set. There are side gig options that may require some training or retraining or some additional skills development. They may build upon some existing skills that each might already have or some combination. So merely saying, I don't know what to do, I need to continue to do the same thing, or I want to change industries into something that I don't know how to do or which is unavailable, there's something of a disconnect there on the employee side, especially on the unemployed employee side. For those who rely on tips, and Vegas does have a strong tip economy, to make ends meet, they're already feeling that pinch right now with our reduction in tourism. Not only is there a reduction in tourism, so actual people visiting, 1.1 million or so far this year compared to last year, but people are not spending as much and they may not be tipping as much, with some alleging a 50% drop in take-home tips in some parts of the fun economy. This could vary by geography, or it could be vary by what you're actually doing, or both. That is less fun, of course, but this is unfortunately a cultural mindset where we depend on outside money flowing in from basic services like sleeping in a room or a bed or eating or drinking. Those are resort fees and they're high prices. There's a substantial markup on things. There's the tourism tax, if you will, literally and figuratively. And then, of course, the people working expect to be tipped. They expect to take 20% of the bill, put it in their pocket, right? So give me that tip money. 20% is the low. The take home, if you will, the fun economy folks need to have non-gratuitous options. See what I did there? Depending on tips is a lot like the economy depending on tourism. When the numbers dip, it's suddenly a crisis, and that's not a good place to be. Trust me. I know. We need to stop thinking about the thriving startup scene as a tech boom of some kind. Entrepreneurs can pursue many things. They need not be some app or AI agent that they're building, though more and more I'm getting a sense that that is what everyone believes will be the case. Maybe, I don't know. The take home, there might be some AI or other tech, but entrepreneurs can pursue what they want to pursue. That's the nature of being entrepreneurial. They might make something happen if they try. So we really need to have a fertile ecosystem that makes it apparent that, oh, I can try ideas out and I can fail, because that happens, but I should be ready for that. I shouldn't expect to throw out all my eggs in one basket and lose the race trying, if I can mix a bunch of metaphors together. So the conclusion, the final point of today's reality check episode, I think more people need to be more connected to what is happening by way of surveys, introspective analysis, and public access to information about those key industries, about the economic impact of expansion of those key industries might have on people already here, what happens when we import talent, and who wins when the big projects cost small business. ... We probably have some idea about that last one. The impact of Formula One, for example, or the stadium. The baseball stadium might have some impact in the area immediately around it. It might have other impacts. The traffic will be impacted, down the street, so to speak. There's a lot of money going into that, and so we'll just have to see what happens. A lot of people believe that a smart city is about traffic management and air quality and internet access, and maybe now it's like cameras and drones and security and a lot. Smart city, that must mean RoboCop and stuff, right? But what if the people who live in the smart city could not only be smarter for living in one, but could be a part of that smart city all the time? Not only when someone thinks to ask for some feedback in a survey. So I'll ask you to ponder all of that. I think more surveys, more data, more engagement and interaction with the people who live here would be a good thing. And you can already hear that my voice is getting tired. I'm going to go make some hot beverage of some sort. And I will wish you well. If you're listening the day this is published, happy Friday. Have a good weekend, or anytime after. Same thing. You can have a good weekend anytime you want. Think about what I have said in this episode and go ahead and re-listen to all 129 episodes, starting with episode 0, and see what you think. Take care now.